crime is dropping. Colorado's fear of crime is rising. How much of that is our fault here on the news?
You're really only come into contact with stories about crime when they happen. I don't think you guys are doing many stories of, hey, there were no auto thefts yesterday, or there wasn't a murder yesterday.
A Coloradan running for president against her will. When does a contractor's actions go from shady to criminal?
It's when I started getting bounce checks.
And feeding young minds and young bodies at the same time, same place. More proof that the world isn't all horrible, no matter what you hear on the news. And because this is next. Colorado's rates of violent crime and property crime are dropping, while Coloradans have the perception that crime is getting worse. Some of that is because there are groups with a vested interest in scaring people, either for political gain or, in the case of the TV news, to keep people watching out of fear. At the risk of not sufficiently scaring you into watching, our Steve Steger is going to look at the split between the perception of crime and the reality.
In Denver, it looks like the violent crime and property crime both fell in 2023 relative to 2022.
Crime rates across Colorado fell last year. State crime data shows violent crime was the lowest it's been in the last 3 years. The murder rate in the state, the lowest in the last 4. Yet polls have shown crime continues to be a big concern for people statewide.
With crime, the data is slow. It's oftentimes incomplete. It's hard to access.
Jeff Asher is a data analyst who studies crime rates, and he spent time analyzing what really is a national issue. As crime rates decline, people's perception of crime seems to do the opposite.
I think it is a host of reasons.
Last fall, Gallup found a new high of Americans, 63%, saying the crime problem in the U.S. is serious. The majority believing crime was actually higher than the previous year, when it wasn't.
People rely on anecdotes, and it's very difficult for people to figure out, have I heard more anecdotes about crime happening this year than I heard through the first 6 months of last year?
Asher says perceptions of crime are often based on stories people hear, like when they watch the news or read the paper. So, of course, this is partially our fault.
You're really only come into contact with stories about crime when they happen. I don't think you guys are doing many stories of, hey, there were no auto thefts yesterday, or there wasn't a murder yesterday.
But social media also has an outsized impact. You don't often hear stories of successful package deliveries on Nextdoor, but the second someone steals a package from a porch, the video is shared widely. Asher says it makes the problem seem bigger than it really is.
If you're only getting the information about incidents when they occur, it makes it very difficult for you, if you don't have data in front of you or easily accessible data, to be able to contextualize all of those incidents in a more coherent narrative.
So a lot of this boils down to partisanship. 92% of Republicans in that Gallup poll said that they felt that crime was on the rise last year when it wasn't. But Asher cautions not to read too much into politics because 58% of Democrats said the same. That's the highest for their party ever in that poll. He says crime tends to be a winning message in politics, so you rarely ever hear that crime is declining. Because why would you want to say that crime is declining if you can scare people into thinking that crime is not great?
And obviously, crime is a big deal if it happens to you or if it happens to somebody that you love. That said, we look at these broader contexts and trends so we can tell people what's going on. But in terms of it being a winning message, I mean, I'm thinking about recently, former GOP Minority Leader Mike Lynch said that fear of crime is why he was armed with a handgun while driving drunk in Fort Collins.
Yes, fear of crime in Denver.
Fear of crime in Denver is why he said he was carrying a gun in Fort Collins.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, it's a way to get a point across. It's a way to say, here's a problem that we can fix. Just caution people before you think something, check the trends, look at the data for yourself and try to figure out if you can figure out the analytics there.
Steve, thank you.
Yep.
The city of Denver is no longer going to be able to sweep homeless encampments in the freezing cold. That came down today, a narrow 7-6 vote by city council to block sweeps in sub-freezing temperatures. There will still be exceptions if the city says that the encampment poses more of a public health danger than the cold itself. City workers can still go out to offer shelter in sub-freezing temperatures, but they cannot force people from where they're staying. The council members who supported this said that there often is not room in shelters when it's that cold. Do you have a Google alert for your name? Perhaps it's an act of vanity, Maybe if you're in the public eye, it's a good way to know if people are writing nutty things about you. It can also tell you if you happen to be running for president and don't know it. The Associated Press says that happened to a Coloradan named Crystal Gable, who learned from a Google alert that she's on the ballot for president in Minnesota, running for the Legal Marijuana Now Party. The Cannabis Party told the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that Gable was in their Facebook group, and they thought that she was cool with being their candidate for president. She was not, in fact, cool with it, but it's too late now, because she's on the ballot in Minnesota. The Uray police chief's on leave. That's pending the outcome of his stepson's rape case. The alleged assault at the chief's house was reported back in May. Then this month, the case became national news when newspapers reporting on the case were stolen. The thief turned himself into law enforcement. He said that he stole all the papers in Uray to protect the victim in the case because they have a relationship. Police Chief Jeff Ward's paid administrative leave began today. The chief previously has not responded to our request for comments on the case. Tonight, our Marshall Zellinger keeps pulling the thread of a story about a contractor with a history of homeowners who feel cheated. And things have unraveled to the point that law enforcement is now interested.
The sounds of home construction on one side of the street and the sights of home construction and waiting on the other.
I demoed that home 2 summers ago. And the other day I drove by and still the same.
As a subcontractor, Yesenia Perez helped get homes ready for a remodel. She says her bank account was also demolished.
I never thought he wasn't gonna pay me until it became $20,000. Then it became $36,000. It's when I started getting bounce checks.
How much are you out?
$80,000, yeah.
She kept the text messages between her and Sean Schwab from Schwab Builders.
Hi, Sean. Checks from 3 weeks ago bounced again.
Schwab Builders is the same contractor Noel and Kevin Collins paid $260,000 to remodel their home north of City Park.
Look at the size of this door. It didn't fit, so they cut the bottom off on the door.
Their home is currently not livable.
I did a couple of subcontract work for Schwab Builders. I paid my employees for my savings.
Yesenia is suing for $81,000, and she showed us some of the bounced checks, which were written from a different company name.
The checks were sometimes come from Schwab Builders, but most of his payroll come from Avi's Remodeling, which is his father's company.
I found probably 3 or 4 different addresses and phone numbers for Avi's Remodeling.
Aron Frankel and his wife Anat did not sign a contract with Schwab Builders. They signed with Avi's Remodeling and put down a $5,000 deposit for remodel work.
My mom said, Avi Schwab? And he said yes, and my mom lost her mind.
We won't go into the details of what happened at her house, but she let us know, hey, you should not proceed with them. So we told them, and we said, hey, sorry, we don't feel comfortable proceeding. They said, no problem, we'll get you back your deposit.
That led to Aron becoming an amateur investigator to try to serve a lawsuit.
I went to go find Schwab Builders, even though I wasn't serving them. And it was
Well, you
all
drove
boarded.
to all the addresses.
I drove to all the addresses. It was boarded up. Again, 3 or 4 different addresses. And at that point, I started realizing, wow, something's going on.
He looked through reviews to connect with other people in his situation. The same type of reviews that helped him pick his remodel company in the first place.
It's not like one of those obvious scam stories that your 70-year-old parents fall for, right? They get the email from the Prince of Zamunda and says like, hey, why don't you come join me in this business adventure, give me $10,000, right? It wasn't anything like that. It's a professional business with a great, I mean, everything looked amazing. How do we prevent that from happening?
I spoke with the owner of Avi's Remodeling before my first story on his son's business, Schwab Builders. Avi told me they are separate companies, but did not answer the phone today when I wanted to find out why his checks were involved with his son's business, as you saw in this story. I talked with someone from North Glen Police, Kyle, who tell me they are looking into Schwab Builders, but wouldn't elaborate anymore. And so that's the one question I've had from several people is like, I've got this issue, I've got this issue, I've got this issue, but it's all civil, not criminal.
Yeah, so set these folks aside. So suppose that I own a business, we'll call it Shady McGrady Remodeling. Am I safe if I just spread my shady business out over enough jurisdictions that there's no like critical mass of complaints that one police department can investigate?
Interestingly, that's the Attorney General's office had told me it gets to the AG's level perhaps when it spans many counties or more than just one area. I liken it to like an E. coli outbreak. You need enough people in the know to know about your situation so that for this instance, law enforcement here, law enforcement here, law enforcement here. If they need to know about it, then they can start talking to each other, say, hey, is this civil? Is it criminal? Let's take a closer look.
Yeah. Shady McGrady Remodeling would be a really terrible name for a business.
Let's look up and see if it's used already in the state.
You will, too. Thank you, Marshall. Democrats' bill to protect the rights of kids in foster care advanced at a debate today at the state capitol as they fought over pronouns and freedom of religion. At issue, essentially, is what happens if an LGBTQ kid ends up getting placed in a conservative foster family. Democrats want to create a Bill of Rights for kids in foster care. Put it in writing that, among other things, that every child is entitled to, quote, a safe, loving, and affirming foster care placement, regardless of the child or youth's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Republicans said protecting those rights would discriminate against conservative Christian foster parents. They went so far as to cite far-right anti-trans groups like Gays Against Groomers. The legislation noted that almost a third of youth in foster care these days identify as LGBTQ. Republicans don't have the votes to stop anything at the Capitol unless Democrats are divided over the issue, and in fact, the bill did advance today. I would invite you to join us tomorrow night for a special edition of Next on the Road. We'll be live from Su Teatro in Denver ahead of a screening of the 9 News documentary Una Vida Nueva. It follows immigrants on their journey from the border to Denver and sometimes beyond.
Es como cuando dicen que uno está enamorado, que se alborota el cuerpo, así igualito. Uno entrar y sentir esa emoción es demasiado.
There are happy homecomings along the way and lots of disappointments as well. Una Vida Nueva is the work of our Angeline McCall and our photojournalist Chris Hansen, who spent months alongside migrants in Texas and Colorado as they navigated their families' journeys. Some wanted to come to Colorado, others didn't. Some are glad they came, others are more conflicted. Tomorrow night at 7, we will live stream the documentary on 9 News Plus and 9news.com, followed by a town hall featuring some key voices on this topic, from the mayor to a migrant who's living on the streets. Thank you for what you did last week to support Loveland's Community Kitchen. Your latest Word of Thanks microgiving campaign raised $12,000 to support their work. And at the end of the month, they, like our other nonprofits, will get another check from all of you who are making monthly donations to the Word of Thanks Fund. It's wild. We are just 11 people shy of 1,000 signups for Word of Thanks monthly giving. That is amazing. That has exceeded every expectation we had when we set up monthly giving. As always, if you know of a nonprofit in our community that could use all that help, email me next@9news.com.
Since March of last year, there were a lot of pandemic-era benefits that ended, and all nonprofits in the community started seeing an increase in need for their services.
And what that means is that there is a library where minds and bellies are filled. And Colorado's cold, warm cycle has rocks doing what rocks do in this weather, coming crashing down at us. Wolf Creek Pass down in southwestern Colorado was closed this morning after a rock slide covered Highway 160. Around 9 o'clock this morning, CDOT closed the highway between Pagosa Springs and South Fork because of this mess. No cars were hit. Everybody was okay. It took a little bit more than 2 hours for CDOT to clear the road and reopen it to traffic. 'Tis the season for that kind of thing. And never forget the rock that rolled off a hill and into our hearts 4 years ago. It was 4 years ago last Saturday that the San Miguel Sheriff's Office tweeted that Highway 145 was blocked by a, quote, large boulder the size of a small boulder. You know what they meant. It's an all-time great line, and it lives on the interwebs. San Miguel Sheriff's Office posted over the weekend, how is it that 4 years later, thousands of you are celebrating the anniversary of our large boulder tweet? The reason, Crispy Donkey, is because sometimes there's something that's said that's just so funny, even if it's dumb and in passing, you'll never forget it. Right, Crispy?
Absolutely right. And they should have had a large party the size of a small party to celebrate that this past weekend. Meantime, I want to give you a little heads up. You may have heard that there's a chance for some snow this weekend. I'm going to step out of the way so you can get this advice here. Just ignore your automated weather apps for the next couple of days. Reason being, these things are going to kind of wildly oscillate as we head over the next day or two as the computer forecast models figure it out. I'll show you that here in the next couple of minutes. Observed highs for today, we got up in the low 60s for us here in Denver. Average high this time of year, 45, way above that for today, and we'll stay that way for tomorrow as well. Highs mostly in the 60s, lots of sunshine, calm weather. Look at the mountains, 40s, 50s widespread. But our next storm system, This is the one that could lead to some perhaps significant snow for us across Colorado for Friday, but especially Saturday and Sunday. This is for Friday. Area low pressure, a strong one, moves its way into the west coast. That's going to tap into Pacific moisture. And then also got a blocking area high pressure. What that means is this area low pressure is going to kind of just sit and spin around and tap into not only moisture out of the Pacific, but also out of the Gulf. So we got a lot of moisture headed our way. Question is, will it be too warm for snow for us here in the Denver area? That's the big question right now. We will not have the answer for probably a day or two. So stay with us about the weekend ahead. Until then, temperatures mostly in the 60s.
That there's someone out there that cares about them, that truly cares about them and makes sure that they're getting the nutrition that they need.
That's taking care of every part of a person. Check out a book, grab a meal, get some love, one-stop shopping in Lafayette. Next. Think Meals on Wheels. There's a good chance that you think of older folks getting fed at home. So let's take a turn to Lafayette for a different place setting for Meals on Wheels.
Good morning. Every day, Monday through Friday, we're trying to serve the community by providing free lunches for anyone in need. Hi, I'm Ann, or Annie Palius. I'm a volunteer at Cold Creek Meals on Wheels. We noticed that there were a lot of unhoused people camping out in the parking lot in the area right around here, and figured this would be a good way of assisting them and providing at least one really good hot meal every day. There you go. That there's someone out there that cares about them, that truly cares about them and makes sure that they're getting the nutrition that they need.
We know that hunger and food insecurity is a big issue in all of the communities that we serve.
Hi.
But we realized we were not accessing everyone who could benefit from the service. My name is Brittany Vital. I am the Development and Marketing Director with Cold Creek Meals on Wheels. When we look at how many meals we served in 2022 and compare that to 2023, we served 50% more meals. And so we saw a huge increase for our services just last year, and now this is kind of our new normal that we're operating at.
Hi.
Just recently, we started a partnership with the Lafayette Public Library, which is offering grab-and-go meals to anyone in the community. Being able to distribute those through the library provides a centralized location. The bus route stops right in front of that building. And then a lot of people use the library as a community resource.
I had 20 with me, and I was happy to deliver 17.
So we're hoping that we can have the community help spread the word about this initiative and that more people can access our services through the library location.
Makes my heart sing. I feel really good about it. It's important to me to be connected to my community and to do something that has meaning.
They've been at the library for the past 4 months with that program, have served more than 1,000 meals. Back with a stack of your feedback on my very poor Spanish diction, an even worse name for a business, and perceptions of crime. Feedback from Susan tonight about the idea of Colorado's dropping crime rates versus public perception that crime is worse. She says, we the public think that crime is increasing because that's what the media report, the bad stuff. She notes, next is an exception. We attempt to be a voice of what's actually going on as opposed to just kind of chasing people's perceptions with the thoughts that that's what will incentivize them to watch through fear or validation or whatever. Sally notes that my terrible idea for a remodeling company name, Shady McGrady Remodeling, is available if I'm interested in taking it. And Peter in Wigan says, what is the name of your documentary tomorrow night? Más despacio, por favor. Okay, slower. Una vida nueva, a new life. 7 o'clock tomorrow night on 9 News Plus. See you next time.